Earlier this year, I remember raving to somebody about how fire it would be for an open world Avatar The Last Airbender game on Switch. Like, take Breath of the Wild, but mix in the Avatar universe instead and have some non repetitive fighting, and we have the ingredients for a game that could actually go hard AF. Could you imagine my surprise when I realized that was actually already a thing? Enter Avatar Quest for Balance. Finally, after years and years and the resurgence of the franchise is underway, we finally get the media triforce that I've always wanted. New additions coming to the animated show, a live action adaptation that actually looks good, and then a game where I can play it all together. The game looks like shit. Like, not shitty, like actual I mean, I'd rather look at an actual turd than look at this. What the f is this? I think I'd seen ads for this game earlier on, but I never even noticed because I thought it was a mobile game. But this is a full-on $50 game. This looks so mediocre, it's scary. I mean, it looks so shit. Look at the movements. This ass. Is that bending or for fuck ass balls douchebags? How could my dreams be dashed so hard? It's as if as soon as the casket closes on one rushed money grab, we get another one that's going to leave a shit taste in fans' mouths for another decade. First off, what are these textures doing? I'm 100% for cel-shaded graphics on it. I think it works well for the anime style of the game, and some of the characters kinda look pretty good, kinda. And the general atmosphere of the game looks alright, with unique and diverse areas and settings highlighting the differences in the four nations. But for God's sake, don't look at any of it up close. I mean, this is just not good. It's not the worst or ugliest thing I've ever seen, but we know this isn't the best they could come out with. I honestly feel like you could play this on a Nokia hooked up to a tube CRT with an 1/8-inch headphone jack. Like, this game better get 100 frames per second if this is all it's going to have to render. In all seriousness, when I was growing up, this was impressive graphics. So I'm not so anal about getting hung up on the graphics because I know for a fact the game can be good regardless. But even the gameplay itself doesn't look that great. You see these big areas and settings, and it seems like it's going to be at least a semi-open world with a lot to run around and do. But the more I look at it, the more I feel like it's going to be a more closed-off linear progression, which isn't necessarily bad since it's following the show, but the areas will likely be much smaller than they look. I could be wrong about the map size, but since a lot of this seems low effort, I definitely wouldn't be surprised. A lot of the gameplay looks like you're using bending more to solve silly puzzles than to actually fight. Like right here, they seem to play Candy Crush or something. Like, that's cool, but it doesn't strike me as the most enticing thing you can put for a gameplay teaser. That's the type of thing you would run into a random side spot and do to kill time when you're bored. I mean, actually, there doesn't seem to be an enemy in sight. Throw a rock, it's to solve a puzzle. Blow air, it's to solve a puzzle. Bend some water, solve puzzle. I wouldn't be surprised if you get to the final fight with Ozai and are immediately prompted with some rearrange the rocks puzzle, complete with an instructional voice. The fighting arena in the show was a huge area with hundreds of fighting platforms. How badass would it be to fly around on an airball and fight the same way? I have a strong feeling that that won't be the case though. Wait, do you even use the bending to actively fight, or is the combat turn-based? Wait, is there combat at all? I don't think there is any fighting. How do you have Avatar without fighting? There doesn't look like a lot of freedom. It's clearly full of bend this and do the thing. And if there is fighting, I feel like the fighting will be the same way. And to make it worse, when they do the thing doesn't even look good. What are these movements? This looks like Mario Party 2 gameplay. The bending is supposed to be smooth and fluent and connected to the element. These guys move like armatures in stop motion animation. It's like claymation bending. And the elements themselves aren't much better. The only one that looks okay is the air bending. Fire and water look exactly the same, just with different colors, and whatever it is they look like doesn't resemble water or fire, so they couldn't even kill one bird with one stone. The rocks move so wonky, and it doesn't even look like you're moving them. Like here, they don't even shoot up around Combustion Man, they just kind of appear there. And what the hell is this rock doing? It's sinking upside down. It's not even sinking, it's just reducing from the top down. What the shit is that? I mean, in a game focused around bending elements, you'd think they'd actually polish the elements. This is the ugliest fire I've ever seen on a game based around fire. I mean, it's clipping through the rock and flows like a 2D animation. Judging by this, the game is probably going to be glitch galore, but that's all speculation, so I'm just going to focus on making fun of how it looks. Back in the days of your grandfathers, there were a set of Avatar games for GameCube, and I remember playing one, and after about 20 minutes I cut it off because it was ass. And just going off memory, they seem to look almost the same as this one 15 years later. Actually, I'm not sure the new one looks better at all. But looks wasn't why I cut the game off. I cut it off because it was instantly boring and repetitive, and the bending gameplay sucked. Even if the bending in this new one looks ugly, I'm hoping it at least is still fun to do, because it looks really ugly. There's a clip of Aang bending here, and it actually looks alright, but I feel like that might be a cutscene, because when he's bending here, he moves more like a South Park character. The rest of them look even worse. I don't think Toph is even doing the right form of bending here. And I love how they try to make Sokka not useless from a gameplay perspective, as if Aang couldn't just shoot an ice cube up at the bell from the ground. Also, the video shows that same scene twice. I don't even think Sokka's feet are touching the ice. There's a lot of spots like that, and the playing part doesn't blend well with the environment. If everything is just going to sink through the ground, can we at least get some dust to hide it? There doesn't seem to be any real physics other than hitting the buttons to make things happen. Even the grass is stiff as a board. In every environment, there seems to be random garbage floating in the air, I guess to try to make the world more active. It makes sense in the North Pole, where it's snowing, but fireballs falling? Rocks falling? It honestly looks like playing a board game. The characters just stand awkwardly like cardboard cutouts at all times when you're not pushing a button, and then when you do push a button it looks hideous. Even some of the big story points are ugly and an eyesore. Ozai is supposed to be completely jacked and intimidating. Here it looks like they spray painted abs onto a beer belly. He looks straight out of WCW Backstage Assault. I feel like all these shots of them smiling and making faces and acting like actual characters are just cutscenes, because anytime the screen shows obvious gameplay, they always look like they just played the Elegy of Emptiness. If the bending looks ugly, coming from ugly movements from emotionless ugly characters in an ugly emotionless world, what is there to look forward to? Again, this is the footage that's supposed to create hype. This? I'm really hoping there's redeeming qualities and the game is decent, because these fans hold grudges for generations, and I'd like to see an actual good Avatar game eventually. Controllers have a lot of buttons on them these days, so I'm hoping there's at least a lot of stylistic bending combinations for each character, and it's not just a lame, washed out trigger action setup for most of the unique stuff. And I gotta be fair, there seems to be a lot of the story points included, so maybe they just put most of the resources towards having a long drawn out story so they don't miss anything. I don't want to judge a book by its cover, even if it's an ugly ass cover, because as ugly as the game looks, that doesn't mean it isn't still fun to play. What are the chances that all the time and work put into this really turn out so bad or just unplayable? Well, actually the chances are pretty high, but still. At the end of the day, I hope through all the ugly and all the glitchy and all the shitty that this game is actually a hit and not a complete airball. Cause you know what? My goofy ass is still gonna buy it like a guilty from a dirty back alley hooker, cause at the end of the day, Avatar is still Avatar.